Well, welcome back at next episode of the Stoneheart Advantage. Hey, Dean, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Jeff, I'm happy to be back again.
Oh, yeah, it's good.
New
It's good.
episode, new things.
Yeah. It's a new episode. I think this time we're gonna talk a little bit about car dealerships.
I'm
You know,
so excited.
I was going through my reference list for car dealerships there. I said, well, I better call around, and just safe to say we've done every kind of car dealership there is, and a lot of them we've done multiple locations. So it's an important marketplace for us. It's a more we have a lot of great customers, and certainly I'm sure you guys do a lot in the rest of Canada, and something that we focus in on. Is there
Abs-
any is there any specific issues that we should be looking out for in those places, or
Jeff, I think before we head into issues, let's give them all the good news. Is like just the capacity of the range of systems that we can offer, um, from just looking at front of house, back of house, those kind of point of view, is that we can definitely offer a lot of systems for that kind of environments.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we often get pigeonholed, as I was like ready to talk about, deteriorating concrete, and you're like, "Hey, Jeff, we got a lot of great stuff before we get there." And you're right, like that front of the house that we've got a lot of national accounts that we deal with that have the same, they want the same thing in the front and in the middle and in the back, and they really want their brand to be each dealership to look just like that. So, yep, decorative systems, washrooms,
Mm.
showrooms, office space, janitor closets. We'll do them all.
Great
Yeah,
point, Jeff. Is brand identity, I believe, in the auto dealership market is a kind of a priority aspect.
yeah,
And one thing that we can deliver is that we can offer each and every dealership for, let's say, if it's one specific brand, one of the global brands, we
yeah.
can deliver the same system, not only locally, but nationally and also globally to the same extent, same texture, same look, same color. So that's something that we can offer that is definitely beneficial to a customer that doesn't want to always re-look at everything every time.
Well, that those systems come, like, even though they might be decorative or what have you, some of those systems come heavily engineered for the actual operations that the dealership is looking at. I mean, when we go into the service bays and we look at that, guys cutting stuff up, water, they got drains. The issues around all the drains are messy. It's oily, hydrocarbon. Well, that's not going to be a little different than the front of house. But I think that's the process. We can make it look exactly the same when we're finished, and those are some tough areas, and we do those on a shutdown, or a weekend or whatever. Maybe you could, fella says to me, Jeff, geez, I want to do my service bay. I said, I'm going to call Dean right now. He's going to give me a recommendation, things to look out for. So, Dean, maybe take us through things you'd look for in, say, that service bay location, for example.
Absolutely, Jeff. Is There's multiple things that we need to consider: the amount of traffic, the size of the dealership, what is it, where is it located in the country? Are they driving on the floors with studs? Are they servicing big trucks or only small cars? So
Yeah.
a lot of aspects that we do in the discovery phase on what the customer's expectation is the most important aspect. Then we're looking at what's the expectation of the customer on the floor's performance. Texture, is there safety involved? They don't want to slip. Easy cleanability, or less cleanability. So we always measure up those kind of aspects to meet the customer's expectation, not ours, because we know what we can offer. We
Yeah.
want to make the customer happy with his floor so he can actually keep his cleaning people happy, the mechanics working on the vehicles. So we take care of that within our discovery agreement or phase that we then look at.
Maybe that's a good point. Like, we should think about thickness like that. We were talking about that earlier a little bit about mortar versus coatings, and that's just something we always run into, because the everybody wants it. Yeah, I want the very best you have for the least amount of money I can possibly pay for. And we go through that. Maybe take us through, some of the engineering background of that mortar versus a coating and what that does for us.
Oh, absolutely. That is the most important point that you're bringing up, Jeff, is that we need to know as soon as we start in the discovery process is we offer all these systems, they all have different performance characteristics. So if we do a mortar coat or a mortar layer with the different, let's say it's a textured decorative finish or a more chemical resistant finish, being a solid color, it's all about the life cycle cost that the customer will take into consideration for what his expectations is of that floor. So if we do a mortar with a, let's say, a broadcast system that's textured and it's decorative, the lifespan of that system would supersede, just say an example, or a normal 1 or 2 coat thin coating system. But also then you start discussing that with your customer on if you consider that life cycle cost and you are only able to kind of, let's say, the budget purposes, and we need to meet that, you'll know that if you go for Rolls or not, no, let's not name cars, but if you go for the best system, this is what you can expect out of a performance point of view. If you go less, this is what you need to expect. So we educate our customer in taking all those points in their decision process and
It's
outcome.
as we build those thicknesses up, that dense layer, the mortar layer that we put down, with includes 22 different sizes of aggregates, all urethane coated and made in Fort Wayne, Indiana, at our plant where we manufacture it. And they're designed with angles, they're not round pieces of sand. So we don't want a bunch of round pieces going together. They're all angles. And so that's how we get the strength in that mortar system. And so that gives us that impact resistant, and whatever we put on top, that coating, that decorative system, or what have you, that's the differentiator. And I know that I'm sure you folks, and we see this all the time, we compete against coating system. They go, oh, it looks just the same. In 5 years it won't. Yeah. But what about around the drains? Like that's a good conversation. Sloping, trying to get the water, the old, I've seen dealerships. I don't even want to put me in there, let alone my car.
Great point, Jeff, is sloping. We've got all the systems that's compatible with these mortar systems and coating systems that we can incorporate into our proposal to our customer. Exactly that, what you just mentioned, drains. A floor will never fail on the surface of the entire floor. It's normally joints, drain details, those kind of things that we take very seriously. And we've got all those engineering details, as I mentioned previously in our other episodes, is that the importance of our engineering details and putting them on the floor is critical. So yes, sloping, we've got all the compatibility products, we've got all the different layers that we know that we can get the best performance for the expected results from our customer.
I think one of the things that we need to maybe explain to folks too is that, and this is a term, maintenance, like cleaning and maintenance, and you mentioned earlier about studded tires, and there's, I live in Eastern Canada, like you either have 4-wheel drive or you have 2 studded tires, like you're definitely having them, and we see them, and you know what, they're gonna scratch and damage the floor. If they, the guy turns a little hard or spins it coming into the garage. One of the things that I always talk to the car dealership, the ownership of these places, is that when we go to do our repair, if we stick with an epoxy and a texture, our ability to fix those things up as they use that, because just like their car, we require oil changes and tire rotations and that kind of stuff. So you can go in there and you can do a small area and get that done. The guys, like, let's say he's cutting off a muffler or something, a little bit of slag gets on the ground. I mean, they don't do that so much now in these new dealerships, but it can be fixed, and you want it to look nice. I'm going to spend $190 an hour to get you to work on my car. I want the place to look nice, right?
Absolutely. No, Jeff, that's a great point. Once again, as always, is that the ease of maintenance on our systems, that's why we are actually doing so much R&D work behind the scenes, is exactly that. You don't, the floor is not bulletproof. It is there for a performance based on what's needed to the customer. but definitely needs maintenance. So if there's a huge mechanical damage that took place of an engine falling out of a vehicle, as an example, the ease of repair is so easy, because that's what we don't only sell a product once. We want to be sure that we can maintain that standard of finish and the requirements to be exactly that, like even if it was installed 10 years ago. So yes, ease of maintenance is one of our priority aspects, always looking at systems installed in these environments.
It's funny how at Stonehard we own the floor. Like we'll talk about the same, like the customer might not know that we're talking about them, but we'll talk about that floor for years and go back and just got a lot of pride in getting those done. I was like going back to see my stuff. I talked to an engineer at Vancouver and I came back and showed him the work, and no one's ever done that before, he said. And I mean, but that's how our R&D, that's how our systems get better. That's how our communication, as we talked about earlier, and installations gets better. It's that line of communication, so we can tweak, you know, the studs, what's going to happen, the thermal expansion now at the doors, where the garage doors go up and down, and we put some UR in there to you know, a slightly different mortar to handle that. As we move through the service bay, we can change that into a more traditional mortar. But when we're done, they don't see all that engineering. They just say, "Hey, Stoneheart did it. What a great job!" You know,
Absolutely, absolutely,
that's,
Jason.
I think that's really key.
That is the key to, you can't sell one product to fit all. And that's what Stoneheart is good in, is that we can value engineer depending on what the requirements is, not on what we think, because this is what we know what will happen if we specify the wrong product. So that point that you just brought up, I believe, is a key point that we, as the flooring market or flooring industry, need to consider at a very high level, is that you need to offer the product for the right environment to perform optimally.
Well, I agree, and my customers become my partners, right? So I got to go back there every year. We got to go back there every few years, and we don't want to create a nightmare of maintenance. You know, when it can. I mean, I know guys that pick a polyasperatic or something like that to do a garage, and then in 4, 5, 6 years they have to do a refreshment, and I said, well, you got to take it off. They go, what? I go, I could pad sand that epoxy and fix it, but this particular resin needs full removal. Or if you use, you know, look how long it took us to come up with a recoatable urethane that we could use on our floors. I mean, that's spun wheels in R&D for 10 years. Like,
exactly.
It took a long time for us to come up with that, and it's a real breakthrough for us. Like we don't tell everybody, but you know, like it's unfortunately it's made our floors a little bit tougher, and now I'm only getting recoats every 10 years. So I'm only pretty much this phase. I'll be done. I'll be retired now by the time the next phase goes. But
yeah, no, JFM, I think that's a great comment. Once again, is that the amount of or the different chemistries that we develop and we install on a daily basis is so important, is that we as I previously mentioned, we don't put one product in for all, let's say, areas. We adapt. If we need a fast installation, we can adapt. It will still look the same, it will still perform the same, but we can minimize the downtime for these dealerships. So that's the good thing about having the R&D keep going and just getting these new systems, new resin types, new configurations, basically meeting all the customers' expectations at the end, just in a shorter time frame.
Well, you know what? The good thing about us, unlike car dealerships, our parts are always in stock. So we get the parts, we got the technicians. Dean, like always, I'd like to thank you a lot for joining us to have this little chat. These are fun. We can run on all the time sometimes about different things, but listen, when it comes to car dealerships, I think we got you covered. We drive costs out of the business. Thanks again, Dean. Appreciate your help, and we'll see you on the next Stoneheart Advantage.
Thank you, Jeff, and take care.
Cheers.